Hello, we went to Romania. We weren't even planning on to shoot here. This was a place called the Hoia Forest, one of the most haunted forests in the world. It's known as the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. Even in some of the world's most beautiful forests, people vanish without a trace, no signs, no clues, just gone. What's behind these eerie disappearances? Well, today we're diving into the world's most mysterious forest, where people were lost and never found, Hoia Forest. These are parks and forests where people mysteriously disappeared. Hoia Forest is often called the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. You can pretty much imagine what that means, a forest where weird stuff happens, and of course, there's all the oddly shaped trees too. Locals aren't shy about warning anyone who even thinks about going here because, as eerie as it looks, there's said to be something far darker lurking there, something that may be responsible for all the unexplained, unsolved disappearances. One of the most famous stories is the tale of a shepherd who, along with his entire flock of 200 sheep, just vanished one night. People searched the forest for any trace of them, but they found nothing. The most chilling story, though, comes from a young girl who disappeared in this forest for 5 years. Nobody knew what happened to her until one day she reappeared like nothing had ever happened. It's said that she was wearing the same clothes she wore the day she disappeared, looking completely unchanged, no signs of hunger, distress, or even aging. It was like she had just stepped out of another dimension and walked right back into the same spot. Now that's more of an urban legend, but aside from the creepy missing person cases, one of the most infamous spots in the forest is the clearing, which is this strange circular patch of land inside the forest where no trees seem to grow. It's barren, and people say that when you step inside it, you feel off, almost like you're being watched or like the air is just a little too thick to breathe. Some people have even claimed to feel sudden nausea or anxiety when they step in, like their body knows that something just isn't right. Next up, we got the Great Smoky Mountains, a beautiful national park on the border between North Carolina and Tennessee. The place is gorgeous, just look at it, beautiful trees, misty peaks, and tons of wildlife. But there's a darker side to this beauty. Take the case of Thelma Pauline Melton, who went missing in 1981 while hiking with 2 friends. They were on a trail that she knew well, she'd hiked it countless times before. But one moment, she was walking ahead of her friends, and then she was gone. Her friends called out for her, searched the area, brought in search teams, but there was never any sign of Thelma. She hadn't been far ahead when she went missing, either, and she knew the trail. So where did she go? The trail wasn't even rugged, and she was an experienced hiker. Anyway, Thelma isn't the only one, though. Over the years, there have been dozens of people who've gone missing in the Smokies under similarly eerie circumstances. Some people have even been spotted moments before vanishing. 1 minute they were there, and then they're just not. These disappearances don't make any sense. People hike there every day, yet there are still mysteries that haven't been solved and no real explanation for why people vanish. Some people are found again, but there are others who are just never found. And it's not like they're in the middle of nowhere necessarily. The Smokies are a well-traveled area, so it's not like these hikers just get swallowed up by the wild. They disappeared, and no one could figure out where they went or what happened. Whether it's strange natural causes or something else, the Great Smoky Mountains definitely hold on to some of the best-kept secrets in the world. New River Gorge National Park, spread out over 70,000 acres, is full of towering cliffs, waterfalls, and rugged forests. But it's also a place where the land can quickly turn against you. The park sits along the New River, one of the oldest rivers in North America, and while visitors come here all the time to hike, rock climb, and kayak, there have also been a lot of strange disappearances over the years. Since 1977, there have been at least 8 bizarre missing persons cases in the park, and not all of them are easily explained. Like the case of Georgia Melinda Stone, for example. In 2016, Georgia vanished while out in the park, and her remains were eventually found, but not in the park. They were discovered outside. Had the search and rescue team been covering the right areas? How did she end up so far from where she was last seen? Then there's the disappearance of Jasmine Michelle Cruz in 2016. Jasmine was last seen near the park's borders, and the case has never been solved. The park's vast terrain can make it incredibly difficult for search teams to cover every possible area, and with the cliffs, dense forest, and unpredictable weather, it's easy to see how someone could go missing and remain unseen for weeks or even longer, as in, never seen again. Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado is one of those places that looks like a postcard. It's got these towering peaks, beautiful lakes, but like with a lot of wild places, it can also be dangerous. The park spans over 415,000 acres, so there's a lot of rough terrain to get lost in, and that's exactly what's happened to a lot of people over the years. One of the biggest issues here is altitude sickness. People who aren't used to the thin air can get dizzy, nauseous, disoriented, and that can be, of course, the difference between making it back to the trailhead and becoming another missing person. A man named Rudy Motor disappeared in 1983 while hiking in the park. He wasn't a rookie hiker either, he knew what he was doing, but for some reason, he just vanished. The search teams combed the area, but no trace of him was found until 2020. It's believed he died in a sudden avalanche. Another man named James P.R. disappeared in 2019, he's still yet to be found. With dangerous storms and hail that can pop up out of nowhere, it's really not hard to see how someone could get lost or caught off guard. Between 2018 and 2020 alone, the park reported 341 search and rescue incidents, and that doesn't even count all the cases that might not have made the headlines. Yosemite National Park in California's Sierra Nevada mountains has a seriously creepy side to it. Over the years, it's gained a reputation for all the weird stuff said to go on there, including people seeming to vanish without a trace. And what's even weirder, there are all these stories of these people being found again, but miles away from where they disappeared, sometimes after being gone for days or even weeks. So how did they get so far without being seen, and how did they survive in the wild, especially if they were underage folks with no survival skills? A lot of these disappearances are totally baffling. In some cases, people have been found with no memory of what happened to them. It's like their minds just erased a huge chunk of time. One minute they were walking along the trail, and the next, nothing. It's as if they were just plucked out of the forest and dropped back down in some random spot. This has led to all sorts of creepy theories. Of course, some people believe the park is haunted by spirits that somehow transport people away, and there are urban legends about wendigos and other creatures stalking the park's dense woods, especially at night. Yellowstone National Park is one of those places that's as beautiful as it is unpredictable. You got steaming hot springs, geysers, and wildlife everywhere. It's one of the most unique-looking parks on this list, but this also is what makes it so dangerous. Dense forests, all the rocky cliffs, the unpredictable weather, everything from grizzly bears to bison can make a trip here a lot more dangerous than you'd like, especially if you have to veer off the beaten path. There have been at least 12 documented cases of people disappearing in Yellowstone, though some say the number is probably higher considering how vast and remote parts of the park are. Stuart Isaac, for example, disappeared in 2010 while hiking, no trace of him has ever been found. Then there's Dennis Johnson, who went missing in 1966. His sister had gone missing, and he and his father went looking for her. Dennis unfortunately ended up getting lost in the process. The sister was later found, thankfully, but Dennis was never seen again. Despite a massive search, no sign of him has ever been uncovered. Yellowstone's vast terrain offers so many places to hide or get lost, even if you're in a well-traveled area. But it's not just the wilderness that's a problem, the weather here can change on a dime, and that kind of sudden shift in conditions can make even experienced hikers lose their way or get disoriented. Shenandoah National Park in Virginia might seem like a quiet, peaceful escape at first glance, and it probably is most of the time. Stretching across 200,000 acres of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the park is full of beautiful views, waterfalls, and plenty of wildlife. But while it's a beautiful place to visit, it's also a place with a dark reputation when it comes to people going missing. Over the years, more than 1,000 people apparently have gone missing in the park, and some of the cases remain unsolved. The park has its share of steep mountains, deep gorges, and dense forests, which can make it easy to get lost if you're not careful. But what's strange about Shenandoah is how often people vanish without a trace. There are no signs of struggle, no clues about what happened to them, they just disappear. Some of the most mysterious disappearances have taken place on the park's many hiking trails, which attract thousands of people every year. Stories about strange happenings in the Appalachian Mountains are pretty common, and some locals even talk about cryptids, mysterious creatures said to roam the woods. Paul Braxton Fugate was a park ranger at Chiricahua National Monument in Arizona. In January of 1980, Fugate disappeared and was never seen again. It all started when he finished his shift at the visitor center around 2 p.m. He told a coworker that if he wasn't back by 4:30, they could start wrapping up for the day, so he set off alone on a hike to check out a trail, dressed in his ranger uniform, and no one ever saw him again. The disappearance was noticed pretty quickly when he didn't return to close the park. Fugate was the only permanent staff member at Chiricahua, and he wouldn't have left the other seasonal employee to finish the job completely alone. So search teams were sent out immediately, but the 17 square miles of wild, rocky terrain made it pretty difficult to even begin a thorough search. There was no sign of him, no tracks, no gear, no clues. And to make matters even stranger, the National Park Service seemed to dismiss the possibility that something serious had even happened. They told his wife, Dodie, that they believed he just walked off the job. This meant Fugate's wife couldn't collect any benefits or his pension, and they even demanded she pay back over $6,000 in salary that they had given her during his disappearance. Years later, in 1986, the case was reviewed, and Dodie was finally granted his benefits, but Fugate's disappearance has never been solved. All that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, specifically, in the next video.